So King David said, I believe, and my belief is strengthened because of the way I speak about myself, the way I self-identify, the way I introduce myself, the way I frame the reality. One of the, I'll say one of the meditations, but it's really a beautiful, our sages put a beautiful speed bump before the most important part of our prayer experience called the Amida. The Amida. Colloquially called the Shemona Esrei. It's not really 18. It's because of 18 blessings. It's not really 18 blessings. It's 19, and on Shabbos it's 7, and on holidays there's 5, whatever. It's not really. But the Amida, it's also a very powerful, it's also a physical cue to stand. Just to stand in place. But before we stand in place, we take 3 steps back. And then we take 3 steps forward. And that 3 steps back and 3 steps forward brings us to exactly where we were before. And it's to create context. It's to recognize that there was a Janowska work camp and that we come from somewhere. We have parents and grandparents, or we joined the Jewish nation, or we're not, or whatever it is, wherever we are and whatever we're up to, there's something that came before me that helped me, that brought me to this place. And then that there's a future, and that I'm in the middle of a process. I'm in the middle of some chain and some series of events that have been unfolding since the beginning of time, maybe before that. And they're going to continue until redemption, and then after that. And then I say there's that line. I say, Adonai, Svatai tiftach, Afi yagid tilasacha. Hashem, open my mouth, my lips will extol your praise, so that I could express your praise. And I've been living with this and trying to live with this, aspiring, when I'm paying attention. Sometimes I take my 3, like at the end of it, I'm like, I had somebody I actually had wanted to think of today. I'm like, but I do remember what I have to do in the store later. When we allow ourselves the obligation and the privilege to stand before Hashem and with Hashem and have an actual real moment there, we ask, just give me the ability to open my mouth here, that I could speak to you, to realize that I'm speaking before the King. I'm speaking before the King who is my beloved Father, who wants me, who believes in me, who's accepting me, who's interested in hearing what I have to say. It's so empowering. It's so wild. I don't want to be small in this moment. So I say, Hashem, Svatai tiftach. Lips also comes from the language of Sfat Hayam.
The edge.
The edge, where the ocean meets the sky. When we go and stand at the beach, and it's so long since I've seen the ocean. You stand at the edge of the beach there, and you just look out at those infinite waves and that nonstop movement, and you can go and go and go and go, and you look toward the horizon. Where does the water end? Where does it start? There's no boundaries. There's no the Sfas Hayam is infinite. It's so big, in the sky, in the ocean. So we say, Hashem, Svatai tiftach, open me up. Just open me up so that I'm not stuck in smallness about my list of to-dos and what I need and what I want. But give me a chance here to take a deep breath and expand myself a little bit and see that where I am with you and before you is part of a much bigger picture. And that's an extraordinarily empowering geuladik feeling, to have the ability to address the master of the world as a partner in this whole story. I mean, that language is a key toward being a part of this redemptive experience.
Yeah, it's powerful. I think the idea of you said prayer, opening up to the beyond. Even say right before that, we say Shira Chadasha Shibchu Geulim Shimcha Gadol Al Sfat Hayam. We're going to sing a new song that is going to be the song of those that are redeemed as we stand there. And it's actually also recently, last few months, that when I realized that, I was like, whoa, that ability to burst out in song, I can't do that when I'm in fear, when I'm closed up, when I'm scared. You can't even talk. You can't even, you don't even know what to say. But then when you're able to, like you said, that breath and be able to suddenly sing, that's why, Pesach, which is redemption, is all about song.
And that whole narrative of the splitting of the sea and that song, it's really a song of the future. The Az Yashir Moshe was extraordinary.
Right.
The Belz Rava pointed out that the people who were there were probably not in the mood to sing. They'd come out of Egypt in a rush. It's true, they saw lots of miracles, but the way our sages frame it is that 4/5 of the community were lost. They were a generation of survivors and who hadn't had a chance to process any of the trauma or any of that experience. Jewish babies were used to dam up the Nile. Paro was bathing in Jewish blood. They had experienced a genocide. They'd experienced the worst before their eyes. They were beaten. They were downtrodden. And they came out of there. Imagine every family missing 4 out of 5 of their family members. That means everybody was in mourning. Everyone was in some state of real visceral loss of loved ones. Those children, there were a lot of orphans, meaning Loleno, and they have this great salvation and like, okay, we're going to sing now. And they're like, what? We're going to sing? That's why it's suggested that the source text in the Torah of the revival of the dead, of Tchiyat HaMetim, which is one of the stages of redemption, comes from the text of Az Yashir. Because Moshe was revealing to them that there's a light that comes from the future and that there's every reason in the world to be faithful and optimistic, even when there's absolutely no reason in the world, when it makes sense to take that pill. That faith in the future and that faith in us being a part of that future and actually like being there for it is a reason to sing and a reason to celebrate. Yeah.
Wow, that is so interesting. It's so amazing. I was thinking also when you were saying being on the edge of the sea, that's also like it's the edge of the night, and it's tough. And it's interesting that, so to speak, that when you were saying how they split the sea, that's like taking the night into the day, somehow finding a path. Anosein bayam derech, God makes that path in the sea that we don't see it until unless you know how to read the stars or you know how to read a map.
And read it now.
Right. Like, I don't know, like if I go into the ocean, I'm lost.
Well, it has to, because you have to create it for yourself. And you have to do it now. You can train, learn how to swim, and you can build muscle mass and learn how to control your breathing. But it's a lot of it has to do with surrender to the flow and being open to the changing reality that's happening every single moment. The liminality of the experience of being in the ocean is so immunodic and it's so powerful. It could be so terrifying, but it could also be just so incredibly relaxing and expansive. I mean, that's the word. Expansive. Expansive. I got to get back to the beach.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to get there now a little bit,
back to the beach. There's something that really opens there. There's something that really is infinite there. That's when God promises all of this to our Zaidi, to our grandfather Avram. He was talking about took him to the beach.
Yeah.
Took him out. Said, look at the sand and the stars. Yeah, you don't see that in the city.
Yeah.
You don't see that in the city.
Even when you go into the water just a little bit, you feel the power. Like sometimes I something that I love when you go into the ocean and you just stand there, feel that energy. And you can maybe stand up for a couple of waves, but there's always one that's going to come. It's going to, that knocks me right on my butt.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's also one of the visions for this era is that, the prophecy that God's presence and that the knowledge of Hashem, Das, will fill the world like water fills the ocean.